Welcome to TechConnect. On this episode, we're going to learn about immersive experiences. We're going to understand what industries they're having the biggest impact in, and also what new cool technology is helping to drive immersive experiences to the next level. I'm very excited today to welcome a special guest, Cameron Uhlig, a creative technologist and managing partner at Onyx Integrations, joins us today to help explore this topic. Cameron, welcome to TechConnect.
Thank you for inviting me, David. Appreciate your time.
Well, thanks for joining. I know you've done a lot of great work in this space, and it's a very exciting area. First off, talk about your journey a little bit and what exactly is a creative technologist?
Yeah, creative technologist. It is something that actually originated a couple of years ago when I had trouble telling my friends what I do for a living. I think it's the space between somebody who understands the hardware and equipment that is needed to execute on projects, and also understanding how that hardware and equipment affects the content creation process and the output of the content that we are creating for a space. So
Okay.
understanding both of those realms is really important, I think, to making an effective environment.
Yeah, and I feel like in your industry, it's complex, right? There's so much going on with technology, with AI, with new software tools to manage. Let's say it's projection mapping, or if it's a live event, or whatever that experience that you're putting on. There's sort of that tech side of it, and then there's the creative side, the
Yeah.
theme, the look and feel. What does the artist or your client want from that event? And kind of merging those things together. How do you balance that?
How do you balance that? I think it's understanding the story that you need to tell first, and then executing on that, and making sure that you stay true and grounded to what the storytelling process is, and then finding the technology that is the most useful in order to execute that. So, sometimes you don't always get the ability to dictate what equipment you're going to use or how the space is built. Um, but it's important to hold on to that storytelling process and understand what the goal is there. And so whether or not that means we use projection mapping or we use LED walls or whatever, ultimately, if we're not telling the story, then it doesn't matter what technology we're using to tell it
Yeah.
effectively.
Oh yeah, for sure. What are some of the most exciting trends that you're seeing in your space today when it comes to technology or any aspects of doing immersive events?
So there's a huge shift towards personalization and scalability, and the experiences that can be repeated and feel unique to each customer or visitor. I feel like also a return on investment for corporate spaces, and understanding when we set up these spaces, they need to be able to evolve and change over time, but also need to be structured in a way so that management has the ability to understand their return on investment, understand, the process and the path that a client may have gone through on their journey through that space, so that every person that comes through, we have the ability to assess how effective that storytelling was.
Okay,
But these
interesting.
spaces also have to be very flexible. They need to be able to change over time because if they are permanent, we don't want to make them so permanent that we can't reset for a new experience. So it's important to be flexible there. So, personalization, but scalability. And those are hard things to achieve. It's taken some time to understand the technology that we need to use to be able to make that work.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about some of your clients and what you're seeing out there from a customer perspective. You talked about some like permanent installations. This could be theaters or experience centers in the corporate space. Is that right?
Yeah, so I always look at sort of entertainment as sort of the test bed of ideas and technology. And then, once they've gone through the gauntlet of that space and entertainment, then we see sort of corporations and briefing centers and things like that sort of adapt those technologies to effectively, tell good stories. So that my experience has been in that is just that. a lot of companies are looking for that, like we said, that personalization of a space, creating an environment that you want to bring your clients into, and it's worth their while. If I want to travel, on a plane to get to your office, I certainly don't want just to sit in a conference room and watch a PowerPoint presentation.
Yeah.
I want that to be an experience that's memorable. And as a salesperson, you want to create that environment as well. So, companies are trending towards creating these spaces that make coming into the office a valuable thing for everybody, and memorable. And so that is sort of the trend that we're seeing. And as we evolve through, creating those spaces, we understand that they need to be flexible. And like I said, and they need to be able to be personalized. And when I say personalized, I mean we have a client coming in 3 hours. We have to totally change the branding of the space over. And
Mhm.
so giving us as a company like Onyx Integrations, the ability to program that space to allow sort of anybody, whether or not they are very knowledgeable on technology or not, they need to be able to execute and plan for that visit. And we need to get them the tools to be able to do that.
Yeah. So how do you do that? And maybe there's in the tech space, I mean, how do you document, how do you capture that? And are there, and I guess with AI and other,
Yeah.
other types of productivity tools that are helping kind of every industry document things, capture stuff. Are you using tools to help document how you set that up, how you personalize that, so the crew that's responsible for the next setup
Yeah.
knows how to run it?
Yeah, AI is, and I'm sure we'll talk about this several times, right? AI has really helped us streamline the process of documentation for spaces like this, right? And most of them are very unique things that we create. It's like a perfect prototype that we have to create that works perfectly, but we've basically built this idea from scratch. And when I say scratch, it's we're sort of sometimes we get a space that's very large to work with, and sometimes they're very small and cut up. So we have to decide sort of what sort of modules that we sort of rely on, such as creating a theater or a lounge or an innovation workspace. We're going to break those up into rooms, or we're going to create one big space. But the idea is that once we have that in place and we document the process of putting it all together, we have the documentation to back it up. AI has helped us to um, sort of create that documentation in a way that is easy for a lot of people, general audience, to understand. A lot of times you look at documentation for these spaces and it's very tech oriented and hard to understand. You need somebody from IT to do anything. And our focus is to make sure that we create documentation that allows anybody to understand how this works. And AI has really helped us create and curate those messages for people.
Yeah. I imagine the type of content management tools you're using are important as well. Like you said, to personalize something, you need to be able to really be in tune with the CMS systems that you're using to change the branding of an event from, from one team to another team, or to go into a stadium and be able to, update it with the visitors team information. I mean, how do you and your team, how do you stay on top of the different technologies that are needed to power these different types of venues?
If there was a single recipe for that, we wouldn't be sitting here.
We hire people like you. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because every project is unique in its own way, and we have to determine when we go in to understand, all right, who's our ultimate audience, but also we understand sort of who are the people who are going to be operating behind the scenes to make this work, and what tools do they need to be able to make content changes. And so a lot of times it becomes a custom built system that is sort of geared towards making things efficient for that business to make changes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In like in fixed locations like a stadium, right? Like they're gonna run, that it's being highly utilized.
Yes.
In that
Yeah.
case, I guess a lot of the
There's a
you have to
process
kind of
for it.
you have to deal with the technology that's in the venue
Yes.
and
Yes.
then figure it out, right?
Yeah. Simply, when you're looking at a stadium, for example, when we might produce a concert or things like that, we have we did a project down in Atlanta in their football stadium there in 2018, and you know the it was one of the first times that we were creating content for all of the screens in the space. And so there wasn't really a template yet. So we helped to create a template or a storyboard guide to, create all the video assets that we needed. So sometimes those content management systems, and we call them systems, aren't necessarily a software application that sits on your laptop. It's a process that we're going to follow to make
Mhm.
sure that the production team gets the assets in hand the way they need them and on time. So it's not always sort of like a point and click kind of scenario.
Mhm.
It is sort of a working process and utilizing the traditional tools that you do to use to create content.
Yeah, that's a very good point. It's not just a software tool that does this, but it's how you approach it and how your team approaches it,
Yeah,
and then also can you talk about how you documented it so you can repeat that
yeah,
in
yeah.
an effective way without having to relearn things. And yeah, no, that's a
Yeah,
very
because not everybody's really up to, relearning or learning a new application because they've already had to learn six that year. So, sometimes you just, you want to go with what's the easiest way to
yeah
get to our outcome here. And that just comes down to listening, and understanding sort of the challenges that the production team's up against, upper management is up against, and trying to find, the easiest path to get to the best product.
Yeah, yeah. When I was thinking and preparing for our interview here, one of the thoughts I had and one of the questions I want to ask was like, you talk about companies hiring and doing big events, like at product launches, just as an example, right? Google, Apple rolls out a big, I mean, these are events, right?
Yeah.
And that's like business and entertainment combined.
Yeah.
And I guess I have this feeling that social media is driving a lot of that too, because you want to share that and you want to have even something that could have been, let's call it dry 30 years ago when you're launching a new PC. This day and age, you gotta get attention to it. And so it feels like that immersive feeling, that excitement, that power, those wow moments, even in the corporate space, are really important for clients because they want that to be shared and to be distributed and to get more eyeballs on it. Is that kind of what you're seeing from your client's perspective as well?
I mean, there are some situations where, I mean, I'm taking it to the extreme of creating a fake event for a product release. Sometimes you might see some things on like on the different platforms of, there's a holographic image that's on the front of a building. Um,
Mm,
Obviously, it was done in post. So I feel like if the situation suits doing that sort of content creation to help promote your product release, then you should do it. If it's working for you, I don't think there's any ground rules to say that no, this is the only way you're supposed to do a product release, and it's got to be big and in your face, and we got to take over a stadium to do it. Sometimes, those businesses they don't have the budget to do something like that, so you have to come up with creative ways to get the message out. And sometimes it's easier, especially with AI right now. I mean, there are some situations where, we could take maybe a founder of a company from 100 years ago and have them talk about the new product release, which is incredibly
mm,
entertaining. And I don't know where that's going, but I feel like that example right there reminds me of a great, I think, environmental or experience. I don't know if you've ever been to Epcot, Disney's Epcot. They have that Crush experience
yep.
where you have Crush, who is an animated turtle talking in real time, interacting with kids in the audience, and actually mostly parents. But I feel like that is, I've always been so intrigued by that experience, and when we go down to Disney, my family, we always try to go to that because it's entertaining and it's in an environment where you just forget that Crush is actually an animated character, and because he's interacting in real time. I feel like that is a trend that with the AI and real-time generative graphics is
Mhm.
going to be something that companies, and like I said, entertainment is a test bed for corporations and briefing centers and things like that. I imagine that you are in a briefing center and there is a AI avatar that is going to engage in the conversation with everybody at the table. And that AI avatar has the data on everybody in the room, your company, their company, and we'll be able to add to the conversation in such an elevated, educated way. Hopefully, it's not hallucinating like like it does when you use AI. But I think like that is a space that we are headed towards, without a
Yeah.
doubt. I mean, we're using AI to help generate content for these spaces already. It's going to end up right in your lap in that scenario, and it's going to be hard to deny because it's going to be correct all the time, and to be able to help you analyze those situations to make better educated decisions. um, Also, the entire time it's tracking everything everybody's saying, so that the note taker applications that we use right now for Teams calls and things like that, it's just going to add to that ability for us to think faster, learn faster, and make better decisions going forward.
Yeah. Yeah. That that is fascinating. I've got some ideas in my head for what we could do here.
Yeah.
Um,
Hopefully, it doesn't just replace us, though. That's what we don't
no,
want to
no, not at
happen.
all.
Yeah.
It got me thinking a little bit, like as you're speaking there about language, right? So we're international, we're a global company.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
We host guests from all around the world.
Mhm.
Are there other technologies like I'm thinking like translations or and
Yeah.
that sort of thing that you can do in real time now when you're giving an executive briefing or you're giving a product launch or even a concert, right? In the entertainment space.
Yeah. Yeah. Amazing. It is, isn't it? I mean, just think about like the possibilities of being able to go to, like you said, a concert and hearing all of the lyrics in your own language. I mean, yeah, nobody's really done that yet, right? So on a large scale, um, and yeah, I mean, it's nothing that we are don't already do. We bring translators to meetings and things like that to help everybody in the space communicate with each other, and so it is definitely something that's going to happen. If we're going to use a AI translator in space, then that same AI translator can also participate. And so it's not a huge leap to get to that.
Yeah. Yeah, and that is fascinating. It just seems like there's endless opportunities here, and it's this blending of entertainment at the end of the day, like in a lot of
Exactly.
ways, right? Like immersive, this is immersive experiences, and the term
Yeah.
immersive is, I guess, can be categorized in different ways. We think of it being surrounded in Disney or a museum experience or a briefing center, but you add in all these other elements that are kind of engaging
Mm.
technologies, and it's much more than just like, pro AV experience here. Now it's like it's everything thrown at you. Wow.
It is, and sort of the pressure for bigger, louder experiences. I feel it might satisfy that, but I think it moves more towards personalization and scalability, like I said from the start, and being able to change the environment based on the mood of the conversation. Um, and effectively, some people might use that to their advantage to sway somebody's decision. I'm certain that will happen. If we install RGB lighting in all these conference rooms, we're not doing it just to make sure that we get a nice warm hue to everyone's face. There might be a moment when we turn everything blue for a specific reason, and it's entertaining, but at the same time, it's strategic, right? We want to bring you, like when we design these spaces, we try to create moments that you'll remember, right?
Mhm.
And so as we build out sort of a space, we say, hey, we're going to take you into a theater and tell you a specialized, personalized story about how we're going to engage with each other moving forward. And after we're done with that theater, we're going to go into a workshop where we might use VR or things like that to help you visualize what we can do for you. And then after that, we're going to go into another room where we're going to sit down and talk about how we're going to get there.
Mhm.
And being able to create sort of what I always look at them as like portals, right? You're going to walk through this portal into the theater, and then we're going to take you through another portal into a workshop, so that when you leave that theater and go into the workshop, it's sort of resetting your brain to be ready for the next story or next chapter of the story we're trying to tell.
Yeah.
And so that's really sort of our strategies that create these spaces that allow measurable return on investment so that you walk into a workshop, everybody in the company knows what happens in that workshop. And we have the ability to walk away and say, hey, this strategy in the workshop worked great, and this one did not. So let's focus on work using the one that worked great for these clients who are coming in next week.
Yeah, that's very fascinating. What we have a lot of small medium businesses that would be watching this broadcast. What's some advice you would give to those companies that don't have a massive $5 million budget for an event, but want to kind of prioritize where they invest for their corporate events? Is it possible to even prioritize that? I mean, how would you kind of coach them through where to start?
I mean, with technology, obviously things are getting cheaper, brighter, such as, projectors and things like that. Where do you start? You have to start at the story that you want to tell. If you have an effective story to tell, these are just channels and avenues that tell the story, right? So find the one that is cost effective for you and move in that direction. When you start generating revenue, after following that direction and that ability, say we creating content that will go on social media, it might be, composited in post and things like that. But if it's effective and it's starting to generate revenue, now you're making money and you can sort of explore another endeavor, right? So you just got to start small and, and
Mhm.
and make sure that your storytelling is always grounded and it's consistent.
Yeah. It makes a lot of sense. You need a good story to tell, right? And
Yeah.
that's the core of your messaging is critical, and then everything else can then build on that to drive an amazing
It
amazing
comes
experience.
pretty easy after you have a good story.
Yeah.
All those ideas about how to tell that story, that becomes the easy part, right? Creating that story is the hardest part. Suddenly you'll find yourself, you won't be able to keep up with the work. So, uh, and hopefully you can get to that space. But you got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
And to go back to what we were talking about at the beginning, talking about like where I started from, and I started my business in the mid 90s out of my parents' garage. And it was building PowerPoint presentations for executives. My brother and I had started a video production company while we are in college. And we were just making, commercials and videos for local businesses in central Pennsylvania. And which, there wasn't a lot of things happening at the time. You're talking about the mid 90s when, there wasn't really a path for multimedia developers. You had to figure it out for yourself. And so from that point, one project leads to the next. Hey, Cam, we need you to create this presentation, but now we need to find an effective way to put that presentation on display. And how are we going to do that? Well, I'm going to go home and figure it out. So I'll go back to my office and figure it out. And coming up with some creative ways to do that. And so it's a building block process of experience, right? When nobody's there to teach you how to do it, you got to figure out for yourself, and that means a lot of trial and error. And so that has been my career, is figuring things out, trial and error. Hopefully your mistakes aren't huge, but you're gonna make them, and you should be able to learn from them. And that process has brought me to working with agencies or helping trade show companies or I think or production companies to figure out sort of the hard stuff on how we're going to execute on these ideas. And that's sort of been my career. And to be honest with you, it's everything that I really think about all day long, right? My career is not something that I stop at 5 o'clock and pick up at 8 a.m. every day. Especially if you're owner of a business or you've been independent for that long, it's all that you do all the time. You're never on vacation. So, you don't really have a boss, but you do. You have all of your clients are your boss.
Yeah,
So,
right. A lot
you
of
know,
bosses.
you have to be on point, be ready with new ideas, fresh approaches, and that is the life that you choose when you want to do something like this.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Cameron. It was really interesting hearing your journey and starting from your parents' garage to where you are today and helping us understand what a creative technologist is. It's certainly a fascinating industry, a fascinating role. It's this bridge as you're talking about between entertainment, immersive experiences, but also delivering value for clients, whether they're in the corporate space or the entertainment space. So just really a fascinating conversation. And I appreciate you joining us today. And I hope we can stay connected in the future.
Thank you, David. Thanks for the invite and enjoyed my time here. And hopefully we can do it again soon.
Yeah, welcome back anytime. Thanks for watching this episode of TechConnect. If you enjoyed this episode, please hit subscribe. I'm David Sholkovitz. Please stay connected with us so we can stay connected with you.